50 years ago this month, a police raid on the Stonewall Inn in New York City, then one of the few bars in that city that would serve LGBTQ patrons, erupted into a violent days-long uprising, which has come to be seen as the high-profile start of a national gay liberation movement. On the first anniversary of Stonewall, thousands marched through Greenwich Village to commemorate the riots and to kick off a decades-long fight for safety, equality, and acceptance, one that continues in pride celebrations across the country and around the world, and at the inn where it all started, which was made a national monument in 2016.
I'm designating the Stonewall National Monument as the newest addition to America's national park system. Stonewall will be our first national monument to tell the story of the struggle for LGBT rights.
In Pride Month and ahead of the annual Pride Parade in Boston this weekend, this year's Grand Marshal, Dale Mitchell, joins me. He was at Stonewall 50 years ago. Good to see you, Dale. Along with chef, restaurateur, and LGBTQ advocate Tiffani Faison, who is expanding her empire across the street to Orfano, opening in August. Congratulations on that,
Thank
Tiffani.
you.
It's great to see you. Izzy Berdan's an artist and photographer who's on the board of the Boston Gay Men's Chorus. Great to meet you, Izzy. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I know you were there 50 years ago, which is unbelievable. The beginning of the gay rights movement, at least a high-profile part of this thing. What most sticks with you? What do you most remember, Dale, from those days?
No one had ever seen gay people stand up to the police before. The police were one of our most strident foes. They regularly raided bars. They regularly arrested people. They preyed on people. Stonewall was the first time that the community stood up to them and said no, and actually won.
You know, the stuff I've read, obviously I wasn't there. Well, not obviously, but I wasn't there. I'm old enough was my point, if you catch it. I didn't know if that was clear here.
I mean...
but let's move on from that. Everything I've read so many interviews with people saying the world literally changed the next day in some small ways and in some larger ways. What were some of the manifestations you saw that you might not have seen the day before?
Day two.
Yeah.
I was at Stonewall day two, and I saw two things that I'd never seen before. One is I saw two men walking across 7th Avenue into Sheridan Square holding hands.
You'd never seen that before?
I had never seen that before.
That's unbelievable. What's the other thing?
And over the piece of plywood that they had covered up the broken window, you know, we burned Stonewall the night before. The piece of plywood that they had put up over the window, someone had spray painted gay power. And I had never seen those two words together in the same sentence before.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
So I know you guys weren't there. We've established that thing. Where are we 50 years after, Tiffani?
I mean, Izzy and I get to live our lives as freely as we do because of people like Dale that have been brave and courageous and fought for us for a really long time. I'd love to tell you that everything is equal and we live totally, you know, lives with parity on the level of straight people, but we don't. You know, we still have, there's 30 states where LGBTQ people do not enjoy the same protections as our straight friends. We can be fired. We can not receive housing for any reason. I mean, it goes on and on.
You know, one of the things that's, that I think people often look at, I was just looking at some polling on same-sex marriage over the last 20 years, and it is stunning. If I can just put this up, this is Gallup. 1996, 27% support, 68% oppose. Totally flipped, whatever it is, 23 years later, 63 to 36. What's your assessment of where we are, Izzy?
I mean, so that specific fact actually for me is right on point, because from growing up, one of the things I struggled with was not ever seeing any of me in media.
You're a Texas kid,
I am, yep, born and raised in Texas, in the South, the deep South. And so when it came to media and things that we had available to us, I mean, I'm 40 now, so, you know, back in the early 80s, we didn't quite have the internet yet, and so we were still on normal cable, and we were limited, you know, so you didn't see brown people, you didn't see queer people, you didn't hear lesbian, you know, we had Golden Girls, we had, no, but legit, and that's as for gay history, some of the only times we showed up in media in a positive format were these comedies. These comedies.
You know, I lived in New York, and obviously we lived in Boston, which is a bubble of sorts. Do you go back to South Texas?
I used to. I took a break for a very long period of time as me and my family tried to figure out how we were going to exist together. And once we started to just really truly show love and open communication with ourselves, then I started making more repeat trips, and for a while I was going back, you know, yearly.
So what is South Texas like 50 years after, or 45 years after, or whatever?
Ooh, it is still desolate. Emotionally, for a lot of, when you're seeking out a community and you're seeking out to express your queerness the same way that you see everybody else celebrating them their true selves, it can be a little bit of a desert.
You know, I want to play a little sound from you from today. James O'Neill is the police commissioner in New York City, and he issued an apology today after 50 years. Here's O'Neill.
Well, I'm certainly not going to stand up here and pretend to be an expert on what happened at Stonewall. I do know what happened should not have happened. The actions taken by the NYPD were wrong, plain and simple. The actions and the laws were discriminatory and oppressive, and for that, I apologize.
With you, does that matter?
That's huge. I mean, the whole era, the decade before Stonewall, the police literally preyed on gay people. They entrapped us through vice squads. They had our arrests published in local newspapers.
Which would totally destroy people's lives.
Totally destroy and result in suicides. With quite common reaction. And they regularly raided the bars, which was the one place that gay people could safely congregate.
Does what O'Neill said matter to you guys?
Deeply.
Absolutely.
Why?
Deeply.
Why?
It's a lot about holding ourselves accountable as a society, right? And recognizing that what happened was unjust, was unlawful, and happened to a population that was so minimized by just general cultural thought around us, that to stop that, to say that was wrong and we're sorry and our behavior around it was abhorrent, it's a huge moment. It's salve.
You're going to make it unanimous. Why does it matter?
Well, it's in today's social environment, the word accountability is lost on so many people. Our media moves at such a fast pace that by the time you even get around to publishing that somebody did something that was either unlawful or immoral, somebody else has already done something faster. And we have social media live happening. So nobody's accountable. So the fact that an entire organization takes accountability 50 years after the fact and is really holding themselves true to it, you know, it's huge.
I want to play one more soundbite for you. This is from 2016, and this is a pretty powerful statement, I think, as well. It's from a convention. Here it is.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. Believe me.
I don't know if people heard you, Izzy. You were not happy with that. What happened? I mean, I actually know people who are not naive, who heard Trump, knew where he came from, New York City, the places he had hung out through the years. They actually felt hopeful. What happened?
I think...
Were we all fools who...
trust but verify. So check your sources, find out his history on the things that he's done, and I don't know. I'm trying not to be vulgar on television.
Well, I appreciate that.
I mean, Donald Trump is a chameleon for his own interests, for himself and no one else. And so anyone that may have believed that probably didn't have any significant history with him. That statement existed only to drum up a modicum of support that ultimately didn't follow through on. He and Pence, the Trump administration, have systematically rolled back protections for LGBTQIA individuals in our country and the military. It's horrendous.
Why does he care about this? I mean, is it just purely the red meat to the base? I mean, what does Trump care about this?
Well, he doesn't care. That's obvious.
Right.
I mean, he cares to the extent that our issues are red meat to his base, but he's basically a pathological liar.
Yeah.
So what that clip shows is just him lying.
So let's leave him if we can. We only have a minute left. Can we do
Right.
Nostradamus for the final? I'm going to invite you all back in 10 years. You and I will be really old. They'll just be whatever they are. What's the most important change you'd like to see in 10 years from today?
I'd like to see a federal law that bans discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity.
Will we see it in 10 years?
I think it's possible.
Tiffani, how about you?
Similar. I would also like to see an increase in funding and protection for specifically our trans youth and making sure that they grow up safely in an environment that completely embraces them. We sort of have conversation about LGBTQIA, and there's a little bit of like how many letters will go past that. And if I have to say the alphabet twice and backwards to make sure that people feel loved and accepted and seen, then I will do that.
Izzy, how about you?
I'm going further. My future dream is decolonization, getting rid of binary life, and us just being able to be true, beautiful people and have our own world to live in. And yeah.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Tiffani, great to see you as always. Dale, you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, all three of you. As part of the Pride celebration here at WGBH, you can catch Reverend Irene Monroe moderate a panel called Looking Back, Loving Forward. It's this Saturday from 11 to noon at our studio at the Boston Public Library and live on Facebook.